speaking of destroying franchises, you may know this story here. I will share screen. You've seen this. A lot of channels are talking about it. This is like a couple sentences it's based on the Star Wars sister, the transgender Clone Wars hero explained. It's basically like a couple of lines where this transgender clone trooper met Anakin. It's in one of the novels that came out 2 years ago that got a bad review, and it's just now it's almost like they put it there like an Easter egg.
If you want to share my screen, Kiss, I have Chris, a little bit of that novel where we can see Anakin, this is the the Jake Lloyd Webber version of Anakin, like the young Padawan, who actually talks to Sister and talks about transcending gender and how the Jedi are all about transcending things. Anakin said, I don't think we can complain if you've transcended gender. Transcended gender, Sister said. We'll work on that, but I like where it's heading. So yeah, that was in a book 2 years ago, which we were all too busy talking about other shit. And now it's been done in this visual documentary or visual book.
Well, okay. So look, to say it's not your father's Star Wars is an understatement. Now, I don't know what Star Wars is trying to be. And first of all, by the way, I don't care. There's a lot of weird things in the Star Wars galaxy. Fine. But it seems like clone troopers would just all be copies of each other with little differences. I mean, I don't know what they're trying to say about this. I mean, obviously it's about pushing an agenda, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Those dreads are not regulation for a clone.
yeah. Colors. It's just here's my objection.
Jake Lloyd.
Isn't that there's a transgender clone trooper in a Star Wars novel that nobody read? Yeah. What I don't like is taking our world, things that we deal with in our world, and putting it into a fantasy world. It's sort of the poochification of a franchise. You know, like when a franchise goes along so long, you know who Poochie is?
Yes, from the Simpsons.
Yeah.
He died somehow on his way back to his home planet.
Simpsons Itchy and Scratchy Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. They brought in Poochie, which was this skateboarding, hip and cool, backwards baseball cap wearing dog that was supposed to be cool, right? It was showing how a franchise like Itchy and Scratchy can get ruined by taking the latest trend and adding it into a franchise. That's all this is. This is the poochification of Star Wars. It's taking things from our world, putting it in a fantasy world, and it doesn't fit. I don't care that they did it. I care that you're reminding, and even the colors are the trans colors.
These don't exist. Clones that are defective are destroyed. Like this is a whole,
that's really what it comes into is like, once again, this attitude of, well, I want to see myself represented in all things, and a close parallel to this is similar to like Space Marines and wanting to see female Space Marines at 40K. They don't exist. The lore does not allow them to exist. So in the lore of Star Wars, which doesn't even take that much digging, this doesn't work. That's a defective clone. The clone starts painting its armor on its own and doing all this stuff to try to identify itself.
It should have battalion colors, for fuck's sake. They should be focused on fighting. They're brainwashed.
You gotta get rid of them.
Commando.
Yeah.
Like they could go to the Bad Batch, right? Like the Bad Batch could take her in, I guess.
But even with that, like the Bad Batch, and they even kind of get into that with the lore of like some of those guys were designed specifically to be like infiltration units. They had to have a certain level of independence to operate where they needed them to operate at. Like there was even lore reasons for that. But like if you want to tell a good story with a character like this, you know, and you want to make a clone trooper be different, that instead of trying to fit them and force them into the lore, and you have Anakin trying to talk to them because they can't be reminded how different they are and how alone they are, they have to try to like force it into the story. Make a story about a trans trooper that goes defective and is being hunted down by their brothers and stuff, and dealing with this peril of feeling like they're different than everyone else, and trying to find an ally somewhere in the world or something. Then at least you're I need an ally somewhere, but like you have an interesting concept even with that they don't even go for, because they're trying so hard to force it into the lore that it already exists, so it doesn't feel like it's out of place.
So that was Finn. That was like Finn's story, right? Oh,
yes.
So like do that elsewhere, not when they're fucking clones.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
It's so frustrating. It's tiring.
To me, Finn was the most interesting and underutilized sequel trilogy character. His arc could have been amazing. They gave him nothing. They sidelined him.
They had an absolute chance, and they didn't take it.
It would have been a Jedi.
Like Mike is saying, it's like they don't take the opportunities that they have, because in reality, these people are not creative writers. They're not really creative at what they're doing. They don't really know how to write a story like what Mike is talking about. The only thing they could do is just shove a transgender clone and just make that clone accepted by everybody. That's
who asked them to do this?
Come up with.
Do you know who the real villains of Star Wars? And I'll say it every time. It's not Kathy or Darth Felonius. They're bad, but they're not the real villains. Pablo Hidalgo and that goddamn story group over there with the diversities and the dinosaurs. They're the ones that asked this writer to do this. They asked him to trans a different character, and the writer said, no, I can't do that, but I can make a new one. And specifically had it talk to a younger Anakin, so they could be used in other properties, which is also why they're being added to the dictionary right here, this Secrets of the Clone Troopers dictionary. So it's that story group which is responsible for most of these horrible decisions.
Writers. Yeah.
The question I have is what percentage of trans kids read this book?
I could tell you what percentage of trans troopers don't make it to the battlefield, and it's about 42%. So
but my point is that they're this idea of seeing yourself. Okay, we'll create a character so you can see yourself, but the problem is you're not seeing it. You're not
reading these books,
and you're not spending the money on tickets. You're not buying.
It's not just that though, Alan. It's about acceptance, right? So if you put all of this trans stuff in all kinds of kids' stories, then they'll accept a trans person in their own personal lives. Like that's the whole agenda behind it, is that they want regular, regular people or whatever, just to say, hey, nothing wrong here. A trans person wandering around doing their thing is fine. That's what they're looking for, acceptance. And so what they want to do is take over these franchises. That's why they have to put so much of the LGBTQ community and agenda into, mainstream storylines so that, more people will accept it. More people will say it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it because they see themselves as not being accepted. That's really what this is all about. It's not really about seeing yourself in this regards, although some of that could be here, but I think a lot of it is aimed towards us, the regular, normal audience.
They know we're going to cover this. No one's buying this book.
Puts out Inside Out.
Yeah, nobody's going to buy it, but they're going to shove it into Star Wars anyway. Anywhere they can, they're going to try to. It's like the lady with the not so secret at all gay agenda on the Disney thing. I'm just throwing as much stuff in there as I can. Remember that video? Yeah. Because she wants it to be accepted.
In the this book says for young children.
Yeah. Like exactly. You started at the youngest ages.
Look at Inside Out 2, where they extracted any potential gay theme or storyline, and they put the movie out, and it becomes the highest grossing animated film ever.
But look what happens with Lightyear when they just enter one same-sex kiss. Ruins it. See, they learned that lesson. They learned the lessons that they needed to learn over there at Pixar. It's like, hey, man, we put any of this stuff in there, it's not going to fly. Most people are going to walk away. So we got to extract it all, and then we good. And so
you're not attracting a broader audience. In fact, you're contracting your existing audience.
Exactly.
Yes. I love it.
Say it, Alan. No, it's almost exhausting to talk about this. It's like they literally probably put that in there to get the reaction we're giving it right now. But I just think it takes you out of it. It's not as if sci-fi doesn't comment in a way that is beneath the surface, right? There's something you could say, oh, I can see that in our world, but that's the Star Wars world, right? You know,
Yeah, there's an allegorical aspect to it because
yes.
sci-fi allows you to comment on today's issues. But the thing about what makes sci-fi last ever long is that it doesn't talk about the specifics. It talks about the broader approach. Take a look at something like Soylent Green. That's about, poverty and loss of crops and possibly maybe even like change in ecology. But it was important at that time because people had no idea what was going on as the economy was kind of collapsing around everybody. So that's what it was basically saying. Like, what happens when the economy collapses? What type of new class comes in to take place and to take advantage of people over that and explore that world for you? It wasn't talking about, geez, there's gas prices going up and Tricky Dicky over there is claiming he's not a crook and blah, blah, blah. Those are all too specifics. You don't need that. You just need the generalization of it. And then you make it specific to your own universe that you're telling a story.
Classic political truths. I.e., it wasn't Bush that George was referencing. It was Caesar who never gave, but you could just make the analogies everywhere. That's, yeah. So they're right when they say Star Wars was always political, but it's not that political that they're talking about. It's just classical.
There weren't the specifics, but George Lucas was like, no, it was basically like, the fall of Rome or an empire going against and oppressing a smaller regime and back and forth. Those are the abstracts that you see parallels of it, but it's not indicative of that.